The goal of this session is to help you understand how you can reduce dependence on Active Directory and other traditional corporate LDAP directories using Cloud Identity and SecureLDAP.
Not just reduce, Ravi. Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
My name is Ravi Kumar. I'm the product manager focusing on Google Cloud Identity. And I have...
Hi, I'm Declan. I'm the CIO at AirAsia. So we're an airline based in Kuala Lumpur.
Cool. And this session, we'll start off with a quick introduction to Cloud Identity. And then we'll start discussing about Cloud Identity Hybrid, what it is. And we'll zoom into SecureLDAP, which is one of the key components of Cloud Identity Hybrid. And we have an exciting demo for you. And then in the second half of the session, Declan will actually take us through his vision for AirAsia on identity, and also he'll share some experiences working with Cloud Identity.
Do you want to swap sides, mate? You're doing the driving.
All right. So before getting into the session, can I get a quick show of hands? How many of you are using Active Directory at this point? About 95% of the room. Good. And how many of you have heard about Google Cloud Identity? About 75%. That's great. So for the rest of the folks, hopefully you'll learn something new about Cloud Identity. And we have a full-fledged Cloud Identity session. I think it was yesterday. It was recorded, so it's on YouTube for you to watch. All right? With that, what is Cloud Identity? It's a cloud-based identity and access management solution and a device management solution. So you have two solutions packaged into one single product, Cloud Identity. All right? So it gives you a single pane of glass for you to manage all your users and devices and also applications, all from one single pane of glass. Right? And it also brings BeyondCorp security model to your enterprises. How many of you have heard or know about BeyondCorp security model? We have about 30% of the room. So I won't go very deep into BeyondCorp because it takes the entire session. So it's, but I wanted to give you a quick 1-minute intro on what BeyondCorp, because that's very important. BeyondCorp is the next generation security model that Google conceived a few years ago. All right? And there are two key tenets based on from a BeyondCorp security model perspective. The first one is no trust networks, right? You're not even trusting your own network. What we do is we inspect each and every request that's coming to your applications, and we inspect, make sure that these requests are authenticated, authorized, and also encrypted, right? And the second key thing from a BeyondCorp security model perspective is that we go beyond the traditional identity-based access, right? So we also look at the context of the request, where the request is coming from, what kind of device you're using. Are you using a company-owned device or a BYOD device? What kind of security posture do you have on the device? So there are a lot of things that we look at from a context perspective, and then you'll be able to create these granular access control permissions on your application. So that's the BeyondCorp, right? So Cloud Identity is the vehicle that brings BeyondCorp security model for your IT and business applications. And also, Cloud Identity is the identity layer that powers G Suite and GCP applications. It's been there for some time, right? We have hundreds of thousands of customers who are using Cloud Identity, about billions of users. And it's also offered as a standalone product starting March of last year in 2018. And when you look at Cloud Identity, it includes all the key components that you normally look for in a full-fledged identity and access management platform, like user lifecycle management, account security, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on into your internal applications, external applications, third-party SaaS-based applications, APIs for extendability, and reporting, auditing for your compliance purposes, and most importantly, the open standards adherence, right? So SAML, OpenID Connect, OAuth, SCIM, and whatnot, right? And now you may ask, like, hey, what about some of the on-premise applications that I have, right? So we recognize that the SaaS-based application adoption is going through the roof for small business, medium, large, regardless of what's the size of your business, everyone is using SaaS-based applications. But like Sundar said yesterday in the keynote, most of the large companies, they still have majority of their applications and infrastructure on-premise, right? For a variety of reasons, right? So you may probably need some more time to kind of migrate or retire or modernize. But what happens is, in this particular case, giving your employees a way to access these modern applications and legacy applications in a simple way, it's really challenging. And it forces your IT teams to kind of like start maintaining these two different identity systems, one for modern applications, one for on-premise applications, which increases your cost and, most importantly, the complexity. So for those of you who said we're using Active Directory, if you're Active Directory admins, you all know how complex that could be, right? So you have hundreds of servers, probably dozens of hundreds of servers, depending upon your company size. And replication topologies, trusts, you need to set up disaster recovery, clustering. So it's complex, right? So as your company grows, the whole infrastructure becomes very, very complex. So what's the deal, right? So we have these two systems, very costly and then complex. How to deal with that issue? That's where cloud identity hybrid approach comes into picture, right? It has the components that helps you meet where you are. We recognize you have these on-premise applications, and probably you may need more time to migrate and modernize those applications, or retire those applications, or in some cases, you may want to continue to use it for whatever reason, right? What we want to do is we want to provide that bridge to connect all those on-premise based applications, give a versatile solution so that you can use one single solution to integrate your SaaS-based applications, web applications, and also on-premise based applications. What it does is it basically helps you reduce the cost of ownership, and also, most importantly, reducing the complexity that's associated with on-premise enterprise directories. And then finally, when you're ready, for example, after some time, when you're ready to move some of your applications and infrastructure and move it to cloud, maybe you're doing a lift and shift, the key thing is you don't have to make any changes that are related to identity, so it'll be a seamless transformation. So one less thing to worry about. All right, so now let's zoom into SecureLDAP. As I said, so this is one of the key component in cloud identity hybrid approach. What it does is it's an LDAP as a service. So imagine you have a bunch of LDAP servers in the cloud, except you don't have to set it up, you don't have to manage it, you don't have to patch it. It's all done for you because it's a managed service. All right? So what it does is it actually takes your Google directory, your users, groups, everything, and then it basically makes it available as a giant LDAP directory for your on-premise based applications, legacy applications that talk LDAP protocol. All right? And if your applications are talking to an LDAP directory for authentication, authorization, user lookups, group lookups, no matter how you use these LDAP applications, so this can be that LDAP application in the cloud, right? And another key benefit is regardless of where you have your applications, it could be on your on-premise, it could be in your private cloud, public cloud, Amazon, Google, Azure, doesn't matter. So the access will be very smooth. Okay? Now let's look at a pictorial representation, right? So this is the most simplified version of an on-premise infrastructure, right? So you have some applications there, you have IT infrastructure like VPN servers or Radius servers, network attached servers, and then printers and things like that. And also you have desktops. So traditionally, they all connect to Active Directory or one of your LDAP directories like OpenLDAP. So what you can do is using SecureLDAP, you can go to those applications, and then you can onboard these applications into Cloud Identity within minutes. You'll be able to see in a few minutes You onboard those applications. We generate digital certificates for you. And then you'll be able to go to individual applications, upload the digital certificate, go to the directory settings, and just point those applications to SecureLDAP as your LDAP server, and that's it. And the most important thing here is no user change management required, right? So if they're used to seeing the same kind of login pages, if you're logging into SAP or VPN solution, so they'll be seeing the same login pages. So behind the scenes, instead of your servers talking to an on-premise Active Directory, they'll be talking to SecureLDAP for authentication and directory needs. So this is another scenario, right? So traditionally, when you lift and shift some of those applications onto the IaaS platforms, right? So you generally throw in some VMs for Active Directory because you want to support those applications. And again, it's not one or two servers, right? So probably you will end up setting up multiple VMs. You need disaster recovery, so you throw in more servers. And if you're a large company, you have users in multiple regions. So now you copy and paste the same setup in multiple regions. And then now, if you have LDAP-based applications, you might also need load balancers before that. So what you have done is the complexity that you currently have on-premise with your directory servers, you just replicated the same kind of complexity in the cloud. It's a double whammy now, right? So it became even more complex. So again, you can avoid all that by simply integrating your cloud workloads directly into SecureLDAP so that you don't need any of those Active Directories out there. However, so we recognize that there are some applications that explicitly need Active Directory. For example, if you have Windows servers, or maybe you have a SQL Server or SharePoint, other Microsoft applications. So for those reasons, we've announced today something called Cloud AD, which is a managed AD service that you can use. All right, so in summary, the key benefits are you can use one identity and access management system to integrate both your modern applications and also legacy applications. And you can reduce the dependence on on-premise directories, which will help you reduce the cost and also the complexity. And then finally, it gives you the Google scale, Google performance, and also Google-based reliability when you use SecureLDAP and Cloud Identity. SecureLDAP is generally available starting November of 2018. So we have a lot of our customers who are already reaping the benefits of SecureLDAP. It's available in Cloud Identity Premium. If you are a GCP customer, you start with the Cloud Identity, the base Cloud Identity. All you have to do is add on Cloud Identity Premium, which allows you to use SecureLDAP and many other features that we discussed previously, single sign-on and a bunch of other identity and access management features. And if you're a G Suite customer, if you have G Suite Enterprise, all these capabilities are part of G Suite Enterprise. If you're using G Suite Basic or Business, you can simply add on Cloud Identity Premium on top of what you have, right? And if you're an education customer, it's part of G Suite for Education. These are some of the SecureLDAP partners. These are the companies who work with us very closely to integrate with SecureLDAP. And Papercut is one of those partners who are in the room. And these are not the only applications that work with SecureLDAP, right? So you can pick any LDAP compliant application. You'll be able to integrate with SecureLDAP. All right, so let's switch to a quick demo. In this demo, I'm going to show you how you can onboard an application within Cloud Identity, and also how to point that application to point to SecureLDAP and see how it works. All right. Okay. So for those of you who are GCP customers or G Suite customers, this is a familiar admin console where you manage users, groups, and applications. And I'm clicking on Apps. This is where you manage all your applications, single sign-on based applications, OpenID Connect. These are the LDAP-based applications, can be managed here. All right, so this is the list of applications that I currently have. And I click on Add LDAP Client. In this case, integrating PaperCut. All right, so in this screen, you'll be able to apply access control. So you can decide how much you want to expose your directory to this LDAP client. In this particular case, PaperCut, right? So for example, if PaperCut is used by only a subset of people in your company, all you have to do is, let me find this mouse pointer here. All right, I got my mouse pointer. All right, so you click on selected organizational units, and you can decide which part of your directory you want to expose, right? And if this application is used by your entire company, and you may want to expose your entire directory for authentication. And you can decide these access controls not at the LDAP client level, but for each transaction, right? So the first transaction is verifying user credentials, which is the authentication part. The next one is user lookups, same thing. So if you want to allow this application to do user lookups for your entire directory, you click on entire domain. And then you can also decide whether you want to expose your groups or not. Now I'm clicking on Add LDAP Client. Within a few seconds, we will onboard this application, and we're also generating a digital certificate that can be used. And click on go to contact the LDAP client details, and switching on this service. All right, so once the application is switched on, it's available to accept requests from PaperCut. So now the part 2 of the configuration is you need to go to PaperCut, and you point PaperCut to use Google as your LDAP directory, right? So this is their admin console. Here you'll be able to see a bunch of LDAP directories. Select Google Cloud Directory. If you're configuring your own LDAP applications, don't worry if you don't see Google Cloud Directory. You can pick any generic LDAP option there, Open LDAP. That should work fine. And I've typed in my domain name here, and then I'm uploading the digital certificate. And the digital certificate is uploaded. And I'm clicking on Synchronize now. What's happening is, so now PaperCut is authenticating with Google using this digital certificate that we just uploaded. And once it authenticates, it was able to make calls and do user lookups and group lookups using the LDAP protocol. And this is the admin use case. The other use case is the end user. So they can walk up to any multifunction printer that are managed by PaperCut, and they can type in the Google credentials. They'll be able to release all those print jobs. So that's the end user use case for PaperCut. So if you've seen this, it took less than about 5 minutes for us to configure PaperCut or any other applications. All you need to do is make sure you understand where to go and where to punch in the details to point to Google. We have very detailed documentation on how to configure all the partner applications on our website, and we do have some generic documentation if you have any other LDAP application you want to configure. All right, so with that, I'd like to invite Declan.
You nearly killed it, Ravi. Okay. Okay, any of you ever flown on AirAsia? No? Not you, Edward. Okay, so we're, let's get to so we're established in Malaysia in 2001. We were actually, Tony Fernandez bought an airline for 1 Malaysian ringgit, which is about 20 cents, 25 cents. It got 2 planes and $10 million of debt. So since then, we've put on another 200 aircraft. We carry about 90 to 100 million passengers this year. We have 120 destinations or more, fly everywhere from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia to Hawaii and everywhere in between. And we have about 25,000 staff. And it's actually 9 airlines in 5 different countries. So Malaysia, Philippines, India, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan. Is it 5 or 6? Oh, okay. So that's us. We are currently on Active Directory, and it's on-prem Active Directory, and each country will have its own AD, and they will all sync together. They're all supposed to sync together, but that's not necessarily how it works. It is extremely challenging to manage, and we really wouldn't be changing if the auditors hadn't killed me every time they do an audit. And when they do IT general controls audits, they always find people who exist in AD who had left the company from the HR system, said they left X days ago. They're either still in AD or they were removed from AD days, weeks, months after they left the company. So that's a security challenge, an audit challenge, and it's just too hard to manage. We have PowerShell scripts running between HR applications and AD to pick up users, configure them in AD, push them to multiple other systems that they need access to. And it's by the grace of God if that PowerShell script works, doesn't work, fails at a particular record. HR may have given the person a different email address in the HR system than we give them in AD. It's just too hard to manage. Why did we go with Cloud Identity? We didn't really go with Cloud Identity. We went with Google. So we are migrating all our apps onto GCP, and we currently have on-prem, Colo, private cloud, SaaS, AWS, Azure, Alibaba. We have applications everywhere. That sounds like a very enlightened multi-cloud strategy, but it's not. It has evolved that way, and yeah, it's too much to manage. And we have 215 odd applications that are spread over all of those hosting methods. So yeah, anybody else got similar environment? A couple of hands went up there. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So not only, like when you saw it was reduced dependency on AD, we don't want to reduce dependency. We want to get rid of it entirely out of our organization. We want to get off our enterprise license with Microsoft. We have got Gmail, G Suite for every single user. We are pushing everybody onto Chrome devices. We're even contemplating turning Windows devices into Chrome devices, and we'll have a crack at Neverware after this conference. I see a couple of guys from the data team today. Boys? So they're big GCP users, big data studio, they love all the Google tools. So we are pushing the whole company. So it's an enterprise-wide transformation to get people off the Microsoft stack onto the Google stack. And we're in a hurry to get there because our enterprise agreement expires next year. So we want everything on GCP, everything authenticating through Cloud Identity, every user getting off Microsoft Office products by the end of this year, so that we're not at the edge of a cliff when our enterprise agreement expires. Let's see. Okay, actually, I will go back. And the one biggest challenge there, Microsoft Excel. That is absolutely the one challenge. The rest of moving clouds, lift and shift, building native on GCP, that's all quite easy. Using Cloud Identity and spinning up applications and pointing them at Cloud Identity, that's easy enough. Getting rid of AD, that's actually not too bad. But getting people to give up their Microsoft Excel is like we have a team who all they do is go around trying to kill Excel, and they make people cry. They make grown adults cry every week. So don't try and do that first. Leave that till last. Okay. Yeah, so cloud native. We want everything on GCP because we have too many clouds and we have too much stuff spread all over the place, and we just want to consolidate on one single cloud. We're not too worried about whether we need a dual cloud for DR. If Google loses the world, then we will be in trouble on that day. But right now, if somebody digs up a piece of fiber outside of our building, we're in bigger trouble. And these two are laughing because that has happened last year. Yeah, so it's not so much that cloud identity is a key driver for our digital transformation. Google is. And we went with cloud identity because it's your identity product, not because we went through an exhaustive search and decided it was any soul searching and decided it was best for us. It's your product. We're pushing everybody onto your products. We're pushing all our stuff onto your cloud. And we are working with Google to work through all the kinks to make it work. Cost savings. Cost savings there is your enterprise agreement. Right now, we're carrying the enterprise agreement for Microsoft and I don't know, what do you call the Google licensing agreement? But we're carrying both. We will not save a penny until we kill one of them. And that one of them is the enterprise agreement. Okay, challenges. I think all I've talked about is challenges so far. But again, single source of truth. We have a HR system which, through the magic of PowerShell scripts, tells us who joined and who left, and we push that through AD and then use that to kill access in all of these downstream systems. And it doesn't really work. It works most of the time, but if an auditor finds one guy in an audit, that's it, I've failed the audit. IT General Controls audit is a high finding against me. Legacy apps. We have legacy going back to the day Tony bought the airline, because it's an airline. So you are always carrying applications which are, you have a legal compliance to use an application which works on a particular technology set. And if that vendor says, I don't support, then he doesn't support. And we have to keep using the application. So we need something to fill in that gap. Paper cut. I would rather we didn't use paper cut by just killing all the printers. but I'm not allowed to do that. So we do need something to allow, like we have a follow me printing now, and we need something that allows that to work. And paper cut is a good product, and it does that well. But heads up, mate, I want to kill paper. So once I get killing all of this legacy Microsoft stuff, we'll be going after the paper. But I think I've been saying that for about 10 years in companies I've worked for, and we still buy printers.
That's actually our goal too.
Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, that is the ultimate goal. So yeah, AD, it's like Rasputin. You keep putting bullets in it, but we can never actually kill it. And it's a race to kill it before it kills me. And that's why we picked Google, well, I hate this. Sorry, Google recording this, but we did not pick Google because we thought it was the most mature and the best product set. And the whole company whinged at me when I started making them use G Drive and G Suite. But we found that Microsoft did not care about making Active Directory that much better. They did not care about my General Controls audit findings. They cared about selling me their licenses, or selling us their licenses. And Google, they will come and say, yeah, you know what, our product is not that mature now. They know they're fighting against AD in just 99% of all companies. But they are willing to fill in the gap between where you're at now. And even we will give them systems where we don't have any documentation. We don't know what the system does. And sometimes we don't even know where it's hosted. But we just give it to Google, give it to their partners. And Edward there he's just knocking over those systems one at a time. How many have we done so far, Edward? 20 or so? Yeah. More? Yeah, so we're maybe 20%, maybe a quarter of the way through where we need to be, and we have to get there by the end of this year. Is this our environment, Edward? This is the cleanest version of our environment that I have ever seen. Wow.
We put a little Bindex on that so it shine a little bit.
Yeah. If it looked like this, we don't need you guys. We'll stick with it. We'll stick with AD. But yeah, it's a hell of a lot messier than that. And there's even applications in there which we don't go through AD. We just go here, log in. Totally. We have a single sign-on system that we custom built many, many years before my time. And sometimes it talks to AD, sometimes it doesn't. Some systems are just too old school that we just say, here, user, go and figure out how to log in, manage 2 passwords. We don't care if it never expires, just work it out. But that's the nicest diagram I've ever seen of our environment.
And in many cases, what we see is it's even hard to kind of like know how many applications you have. So when we talk to our customers, like, hey, tell us like how many applications are talking to AD. They'll say, good luck. So I'll come back after 3 months, right? So because there's no application inventory management and things like that, so you have these applications floating around in spreadsheets all over, and then you have these spreadsheets with application owners and then individual admins. So
and the boys over there will tell you we restructure every 6 months. And departments come and go. They go off and be their own companies, and then they come back into the group, and then they go back out again. And we're having to change domain names for, let's say we spun off our ground handling company into a separate company, in a JV with a Singapore ground handler. So overnight, 5,000 staff worked for a different company. They still need to authenticate back into our applications because they're doing the ground handling for us. They had at AirAsia.com email addresses at midnight one night, and then at 12:01 they became at GTR.com. They still have all our hardware. They still have they're still doing work for us. They're still wearing shirts with the AirAsia logo on it, but they're a separate company, separate HR system, separate payroll, separate policies, and we have to manage that happening quite a lot. And that's happened over the last 10 years, so when people leave those other companies, we don't always know about it. So we're relying on, and so sometimes it's even the HR person has to send an Excel spreadsheet to us that we have to then load, and you give that to an auditor, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So yeah, but nice diagram. I wish it was like this. Okay, this is getting more like it now. Okay, so we're going to kill all of that. And that's, like CRM system is Salesforce. HR system is Workday, so Salesforce, no problem. Workday, problem now, but soon to be not a problem, because we're working hard. We find we spend a lot of time bullying the third-party vendors to talk to Google. Google are very good at saying, okay, we'll do it. Please try and make your vendor do it. So Workday are one of those vendors. So technology is ready. It's contractual. We're waiting for contractual issues to be resolved before we can just hook it through Cloud Identity. And we find that with the smaller vendors where we're their biggest client, it's okay, we can bully them. But for the big guys, yeah, we kind of need Google. And having Google as a partner who are willing to do that for us, that works really well for us. Okay, App Engine. So the dev team are happily building stuff on App Engine, so that stuff gets hooked in fairly natively. VPNs, again, yeah, this stuff is fairly standard. What are we next? So Ravi, tell me what this one means. Give me a hand with this one. What's the difference between this and that?
So I think, I don't know, I think Edward actually has put
yeah, Edward, what's the difference between this one and that one?
So I think the only difference is the desktops and laptops that are connected there.
we are moving everybody off those Windows environments. Again, on desktops, we are pushing people onto Chromebooks. Again, more people are crying, but we just bribe them with Pixelbooks, and they like it. But once that Microsoft Enterprise Agreement goes, all of those Windows licenses for those people to sign into those machines will disappear. So we will need some way we will need an emulator to allow Wintel tech at the back end, hosted on GCP, to talk to a user. We will use SassPass and Citrix. We will have RDS licenses, we'll still need that RDS piece to talk to that back-end Wintel. We will either just consume that license from Microsoft ourselves, or we will build it into Citrix and SassPass. And we will use SassPass as well to do the single sign-on and the password management piece. And eventually we have to pick Citrix because of one legacy, or one of our most important application. It's too important for us to do it while trying to make it work on SassPass, so we need Citrix for that. A little bit of complexity, but not too bad. Okay, benefits. So yeah, we're going everything on GCP, absolutely everything. The one caveat is China. So 20% of our revenue of our passengers and revenue comes out of China. I won't ask any Google people to comment on their China strategy here, but our issue is more on bad actors in China coming at us and trying to hold inventory on our website. So, anybody else here work for an airline? No? Well, the problem for us is that in order for us to sell you a seat on the airline, we have to make sure we hold that inventory before you give us the money. And because that inventory is finite, there's only 180 seats on a 320, a bot will come along, hold that inventory, pass us a fake payment, hold that seat for as long as the bank comes back and tells the payment is refused. So that might be seconds, it might be minutes. We will wait up to 15 minutes for the bank to respond. And they will hit a plane, one flight, tens of thousands of times, dominating all of that inventory and not allowing a real person to actually buy the seat. They will take that inventory, advertise it on a third-party website, like an OTA site in China. So if they're holding it at $100, they will advertise it at $150. They will wait till somebody gives them $150, then they will give us 100. And then 4 hours before the flight departs, they will drop any inventory that they haven't held, because they can't sell. We have to legally stop selling 4 hours before the flight departs. So we may, and we've been having this problem for 2 years, maybe longer, Sudesh, longer, where a flight will look like it's got no seats left, because they'll all look sold or held, but it will take off with the flight half empty. And that's a massive hit on our revenue. And those bad guys are coming from inside China, so we need a WAF inside China that can see the traffic right from the origin. So until Google get their Armor product to be a real AI-driven WAF tool, not just a IP blacklist, then yeah, we're stuck on Alibaba. Ease of management. I think I've described how we currently manage through AD, and that's not very easy. So we want that single pane of glass, single console, everything managed through it, and we want GUIs like that. I don't want to be having to dive down into physical AD boxes in 5 different countries to see why a profile exists in one place that's supposed to be gone. And that's just a nightmare now. Security concerns, yeah, the security concerns are, because we keep having these IT general controls issues, all of those people are, if they're in AD, they're inside the network. If they're inside the network, they have access to data and systems, and if they are bad actors and through omission by us they have access, then our data is insecure. We cannot have that happen in this day and age. So that needs to be fixed this year. And cost saving, simple, just kill that enterprise agreement. Okay, well, that's not really next steps for me, mate. That's for you, isn't it?
So finally, what you've heard from Declan is not a unique thing, right? So we are hearing from many large companies, they have similar pain points, what Declan has pointed out. And the key thing is we're helping a lot of these customers to go through the same process of, again, identifying all your applications. That's sometimes that it takes a lot of time, right? Because Active Directory and other traditional directories, there's no easy way to kind of understand which applications you have.
Who's thinking about doing this? Who's out there on AD thinking, will it be hard, scary? And what's stopping you from making that decision?